All right, welcome to what should hopefully be the last video of retirement benefits. I need to take a bit of a pause here just to maybe address something that you might have picked up until this point. So we've had the three major types of funds: pension funds, provident funds, and RAFs. And we've seen that pension funds and RAFs work in pretty much the same way, except one's with your employment, one's not, in that they've got the 1/3, 2/3 rules, and provident funds don't. Now, you may have noticed that when you're doing Section 11 Cap F, you treat all of them exactly the same, all contributions to any three of those as allowable deductions. So straight away you should be thinking, well, hey, why would I ever want to invest in a pension fund or an RAF when I can get the exact same tax deduction for a provident fund, but when I retire, I'm allowed to take it all in one go, as opposed to having this limit of 1/3 or 2/3. Okay, so that's something that you need to think about, and it makes sense. Why would you want to not invest in a provident fund if you can get the same deduction as the other two, but not be subject to the 1/3, 2/3 requirement? And basically, this is a problem due to the transitional nature of where we find ourselves. So we had a situation where all three are being allowed the same deduction, whereas previously you weren't allowed any deductions for provident funds. Now you are, but now we have to deal with what happens with the money that comes out of a provident fund. So what we have is the following. I'm going to make this there. Maybe it won't even work for this next slide. Let's see. No, so I'm going to move it down here. What we have is this was a previous amendment that was made, and it's an amendment that basically says any contributions that you made to a provident fund before the 1st of March 2018, okay, or if you are 55 years or older, all contributions to any kind of provident fund which the person, if you were a member when you were 55 on the 1st of March 2018, what it basically says is all those contributions and all the growth on those contributions will be allowed to be taken as a lump sum, all in one go. Anything that happens after those dates is going to be subject to different requirements. The net idea here is before that date you were contributing, you weren't allowed deductions, so it makes sense you can still take it all in one go. That accounts for anything you made before the 1st of March, okay? Or if you were 55 years or older on the 1st of March, all the contributions you're ever going to make. Those can be taken as one big lump sum. The idea here is that anything after those dates will not necessarily be allowed to be taken as a big lump sum. The place that government's going here is to actually make it that you can't take it all as a lump sum, okay? They're making it so that in terms of the funds, you're going to have to take all three. You're going to have to, in all three funds, take 1/3 up front, up to 1/3. You don't have to take anything. And the rest, other 2/3, you're going to have to take as annuities. This is still a little bit transitional. Nobody knows when it's going to be actually fully put into law. But the process since the 1st of March 2018 has been as follows. Okay. What you will see here, this is just basically telling you what I just told you before. The other special thing that you need to know that I don't really see coming up too often is that if you are a public sector employee, so you're employed by the public sector, something owned by government, there were special things that happened to your pension, to the way that it was going to be taxed. Okay, there used to be a way that you could get some kind of benefit by transferring a lot of your funds into a provident fund. Okay, why you did this was because you previously weren't taxed, but when you it just was a complicated scenario. All that basically you need to know is that there were some amendments passed to combat this, and what it meant is that you lost all these benefits. Do I want you to worry about this? I don't. Okay, I can tell you now, I'm not going to ask you on this, but you do theoretically need to know that it exists, even though I don't think you're ever going to get asked on it. Okay. as follows on from the previous slide. What I do think is quite important and very interesting is that when you get a lump sum from a public sector pension fund, they are only subject to tax after the 1st of March 1998. So before that date, if you work for the public sector, any lump sum you got was actually tax free. So there is a formula that you need to know if you're ever doing the tax of anybody from the public sector, that A is your deemed lump sum, so that's the answer you are looking for. B over C, years after 1998 over total years, and D is the lump sum. You obviously only want to tax the portion that accrues after 1998. And I'll give you a little bit of a case study when we get to the end of these slides. Then we get to section 10C. This is a slightly different section from the others. So it's linked, but not exactly linked to everything that we've been dealing with. If you're finding it in section 10C, okay, it's in your normal income tax side of things. And what this is it deals with, when you're looking at section 11F, go back there in your mind for me, that's all your contributions to your pension funds, your provident funds, your RAFs. You add them all together, you've got your 27.5% limits, all those kind of things, and then you deduct it. Did you ever think what happened to any portions that were not deductible? So anything that was above a limit. So far, you've always known anything that's above a limit, you carry forward to the next year and you carry on doing the same thing. And that's totally right. But there's something else that you need to know. Since the 1st of March 2014, Section 10C does the following. What it says, if you have any contributions that did not qualify for Section 11 Cap F, okay? So any contributions that did not qualify for 11 Cap F, it used to be called 11K, 11N. Those were the old names for it before it was all brought into one. You can do certain things with those contributions. Now, you need to listen to me very, very carefully. The first step that you do for any kind of contributions that were not allowed as deductions, I'm going to make it big because it's important. Please listen. If at any point you receive a lump sum, and at the point when you receive that lump sum, you have undeducted contributions to a fund. So anything in terms of Section 11F that wasn't allowed as a deduction because it was above the limits, you may take that undeducted portion and you may subtract that as an allowable deduction from the lump sum that you receive. Okay, so what that means is if you get R1,000,000 lump sum, and at the point in time when you did that, there was 50,000 that was not allowed previously as a Section 11F, you may take that 50,000 and take it off of that million, and you'll only pay tax on the, 950,000. Obviously, you will not be allowed to deduct that 50,000 in terms of Section 11F again, but it will set it off against the lump sum now. What Section 10C says is that if something didn't qualify for 11K or F, wasn't allowable as a deduction in terms of 5 or 6 of the second schedule, so those are allowable deductions for previously undeducted Section 11Fs, you can then apply any of those unused deductions against annuities received in the year. So if you get an annuity payout from your pension, you may use any previously undeducted portions and apply it to the annuities in the year. The order that it goes will be, hey, you first look and see, does it rank in terms of Section 11F? So were you able to deduct it in terms of that? Then, are you able to deduct it against any lump sums? And then you look to see if you can stick it against any annuities. That is the order. Okay, so please have a look in the textbook a little bit more about 10C. I have a feeling it's the last slot. No, there's one more, although we've spoken about this already. So this is just recapping what I said. But now, before we end, I want to give you a bit of a real life example just to show you how this actually applies and things you have to think about. So I'm going to give you the example of my father, who I'm currently helping with his retirement. So he's coming up to retirement age. He works for the South African Navy, He's worked for them since he was like 18 years old, so he's worked for them for a very long time. And it's now coming up that he gets to retire in the next sort of year and a half. So he's starting to think about what happens when he retires. The Navy has a government employee, as part of the government employees pension fund. So he saved up a fair bit of money. Actually, you don't need the slides, so you can see me for this. So he saved up a fair bit of money in the 40 years that he's been working for the Navy so far. Now, when he's got some options that he has to think about, and this is what he's been thinking about, and the kind of stuff you're going to have to think about if you do anybody's tax. He's coming up to retirement age. If he works until he retires, he will get his, he can take 1/3 of it as a lump sum and the other 2/3 as annuity payments. Benefits there, you get 1/3 in cash, 2/3 over time. However, there is another option that he gets to think about. If he was to resign on the day just before he was to retire, he's forced to leave that pension fund because he can't be part of it anymore. Okay? Because he's reached the age of 55, it's not going to be taxed according to the bad table. It will be taxed according to the good table. But now it's going to mean he's able to get the whole amount in one go. Now, obviously, that sounds really good, but then you've got to start to think about the tax tables. If he takes everything that he saved in one go, from the tax tables he's going to be hitting the 37% bracket. But if he was only going to take 1/3, it would be at a much lower bracket. So the tax is going to be higher if he takes it all in one go, whereas it will be lower if he takes it over time. But you have to now weigh up the benefits of being able to get all your cash in one go. The benefits, you have certainty because the money is yours, it's all yours now. If you're going to get it paid out over time, there are certain risks. What if the government doesn't have the money to pay you? They'll stop paying you. At the same time, what if you die very quickly? Those payments might stop a month or two after you retire. You got to weigh up those benefits versus the benefits of taking it all in cash now and investing it. In my father's case, he was given free housing when he worked for the Navy. So now that he doesn't, he'll have to buy a house. So he's going to have to take a big portion of that and buy a house with it. You then have to start to think about, well, that will save rent, it will save interest on a bond. So you're going to have to do a whole load of these calculations to weigh up the tax benefits versus the time value of money versus interest savings versus certainty versus getting it over time. You're going to have to weigh in factors such as the health of the person. If you expect them, let's say if they're of ill health, you would expect to want to take all the money now rather than have a payout for however long they are planning to live. Okay. So you're going to have to weigh those things up. At the same time, one thing I didn't mention that I think is quite important, when I say you can take the money as an annuity, the 2/3, you've got certain choices. You can take what's known as a living annuity, which is a number calculated by the fund, like Old Mutual, whoever it might be, and they will say, we'll pay you this much a month until you die, and they then take the risk of if you live very long, they're going to pay out more, but if you live very short, they're going to pay out less. That's known as a living annuity. The other option, you can just get a regular annuity, and they'll say, well, you've got this much, we'll pay it out to you over this amount of time, this is how much you're going to get per month, the amount will be lower, but if you die, whatever's left behind will go to whoever you choose, your wife, your family, your kids, whatever it might be. The specifics of how you decide which of those you go to is a little bit of a specialist topic. You can look at it. I think it's interesting. But the stuff that we've covered in the lectures for now is where you need to find yourself before you get to a GDA level. So make sure that you understand the things that I've gone through in these videos. Make sure that you go through the textbook to look at some examples. And then make sure you do the tutorials as well. Retirement benefits, something that always pops up, something I like testing, although I like testing everything. And yeah, just make sure that you understand the process. If you can explain it to somebody else, that's a good indication that you know what's going on. Anyway, all the best. If you've got questions, remember you can always email, send a message on Ekamva, whatever you need. Farewell.